Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. This is the France 24 debate. In part one, we saw our exclusive report on the situation for Cameroon's homosexuals. With us to talk about it, France 24's Marc from Yaoundé, the communications minister, Issa Tchiroma BAKARY, Nigerian activist Joseph AKORO, and journalist and gay rights activist Thomas FOUQUET LAPAR. The minister in part one, Marc, of that report saying that it's not at all true that there's a witch hunt against homosexuals in Cameroon, but 99% of the population feels that it's not right.
Clearly, there is a difference between what the minister is saying and what we saw, especially in the treatment of homosexuals who are in detention. We've heard horrific stories. There was also the story that we begin the report with of this unsolved murder. According to the authorities, it was just a crime, but there are troubling circumstances around this crime. And let's not forget that just a few days ago, a homosexual who was in jail for over a year and who had recently exited jail died in his village. When we were there, we tried to see that man, Roger Mbede. We couldn't go there because we were told his family doesn't really want us, the village doesn't really want us. And according to his lawyers, he died because his family did not allow him to be treated. He was ill, and according to his lawyers, the family feels that he had dishonored the family, and that in a way his death could help them regain their reputation in their village and with their peers. So clearly there are troubling things happening for gays in Cameroon right now.
Joseph AKORO, in the report we saw, Marc Perelman describing the difficulties especially for homosexuals who are in detention, but he also talked about some attitudes changing, most notably within the church. What have you witnessed on that score?
Well, particularly I haven't witnessed anything specifically on attitudes changing at the church or something like that. But I mean, based on the things that is going on right now in my country, Nigeria, a lot of conversations are going on, especially at the level of religion. And one of the things that is coming out clearly is the disregard of homosexuality on the grounds of religion, be it Christianity or Islam. And this is actually trickling down to the attitude of the general citizenry within the country and their reaction to the anti-gay bill that has just been signed by the president.
How so?
Well, the bill was signed into law on the 7th, we heard, but on Monday, on the 13th, we received the news about the bill being signed into law. And right now on Twitter and Facebook, there are a lot of reactions that I get personally because I tweet a lot about this issue, and then talking about how the anti-gay law, the new law, is actually not on same-sex marriage only, but also going to have an impact on the general population and how they interact with one another.
The minister making the point before the break that it's not just Cameroon. It's true that, as you say, on Monday, news surfacing that Nigeria's president quietly signed that bill. It bans gay organizations, makes same-sex couples liable to up to 14 years imprisonment.
There can't be two guys living together in same roof and everybody knows that they are gay. No, this country is not for them. They better go to another place.
All right, the senator there making that announcement. By the way, we've had reports, most notably from the Associated Press, that there have been scores of arrests since Christmas time in northern Nigeria, with people being charged of belonging to gay organizations.
I think the issue is becoming a humanitarian issue, though that it's not maybe obvious because claiming asylum and migrating because of being homosexual is not something that you claim obvious. But I would like to raise a question to this man who just said that people should not be in this country. Most of elite politicians and elite people of this country send their kids to Europe or to USA for study. So how can it be that they consider our countries as good for the kids, but they consider that those countries where they send their kids, where law is favorable for homosexual people, is not good, is good for the kids, but it should not be in their country? Isn't there a paradox in that?
Issa, Tchiroma, BAKARY, your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I want to say that with respect to what is taking place in other countries, gay and homosexual in Cameroon are receiving greatly mitigating circumstances. I keep always saying that they are not corrupt in Cameroon. They are far from being persecuted. I challenge whoever to prove me because of their sexual inclination. They are being harassed in the street or in the town or in the place where they have job. Homosexual in Cameroon, they are free. I want you to understand this and to integrate as a fact. They are free in Cameroon. They are doing their job. They are moving up and down. They are part and parcel of the society. And the protection of their physical integrity, the protection of their life is of paramount importance, and this is the responsibility of the government. Nobody can say that in Cameroon, homosexual in the street, they are persecuted or harassed. What is forbidden in Cameroon? The exhibition of sexuality in what they are doing in their home. Nobody knows, and the government do not mingle in such activity when they are in their intimacy. What is forbidden is in the street, just that.
Joseph AKORO?
Yeah, thank you very much. I was going to respond to that because in July 2013, I was in Cameroon when we received the news about the death of Eric. And the fear that I kind of experienced among the gay community there was incredible. I mean, you cannot say, Mr. Minister, that homosexuals in Cameroon live freely because they only live in fear. They live in fear of being blackmailed. They live in fear of being extorted. The truth is that while this Cameroon government or the Cameroon laws criminalizes against homosexuals and do not perhaps, persecute them, there are members of the society that use this law as an instrument of blackmail extortion, which the government is not willing to address. These people go to the police station to report these cases, but the police do not have anything to do because, again, homosexuality is illegal. These people do not live free. They live in utmost discrecy, and this is the same thing that happens in many other countries within West Africa where homosexuality is illegal.
All right, and we're seeing, Marc PERELMAN, a huge discrepancy between public opinion here in the West and public opinion in Africa. We have a comment on Twitter. Laws can't stop love. Homosexuality is not a disease. Homophobia is. All my support to the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transsexuals in Africa. But in Africa, and as you said, illustrated in that report, most people are in favor of the law.
Yes, when the minister says 98% of Cameroonians, because of their religious beliefs, oppose homosexuality, well, he's not too far from the truth. It's probably, those laws are not throwing people in the streets to protest. Clearly, none of the countries we've cited, and there are a number of them, probably 2/3 of the countries in Africa that have laws repressing homosexuality in one way or another, people are not protesting against this. So is it because of religion, because of tradition, or because of this myth that homosexuality has been imported by the white man, that Africans cannot be homosexual? Because you hear it a lot over there, that you guys, you white guys, brought this upon us. It's difficult to figure out, but clearly public opinion is not in favor of gay rights in many African countries. That's absolutely certain.
Thomas FOUQUET LAPAR.
Yeah, I'm more or less agree with that because there is one thing that is the law, and one thing that must be cleared is that this family that were crying for the kids being dead, I mean, why the law should be here to restrain people and to make problem to family? The law is supposed, and the politics is supposed to be encouraging people to their life, not to restrain them. And that's very questioning. Why the politics and the law goes into privacy, goes into families to create division? That's one thing. Mr. Minister say that there are no prosecution, no harassment, but Roger Mbede, who recently died, was sentenced by the appeal court for 36 months. And the motive of his sentence is just that he sent an SMS, a love SMS to a man. Is that something normal?
All right, before I get the minister's reaction on this, another comment on Twitter. Really, Nigeria, even if you don't agree with homosexuality, 14 years in prison for being gay is extreme. That's the reaction there. Mr. Minister, what is for sure is that, and not just in Nigeria and Cameroon, we can even call up the map that shows it, putting aside South Africa, which has legalized gay marriage, elsewhere on the continent, the trend is towards criminalization of homosexuality. As we mentioned in the report, there were laws on the books that for a long time were not enforced. Why is it that those laws are being now enforced more and more stringently?
Well, what is the responsibility of a government? The implementation, the full implementation of the law. Do you ask the government to be legal when somebody protect the law? You ask the government to touch the nation to it that all citizens are law-abiding people. Then you want the government to be lenient to let people disobey the law, lawless people. This is the problem. This is the major question that you have to resolve. As you said, homosexuality, this is not something natural in Africa. We detest it. We abhor it. But the responsibility of the government, as I said, is protect, because even though they are homosexual, they are protected in Cameroon. They are free to move. I tell you, because of his sexual orientation, by the government, he has been arrested, prosecuted, or punished. But in the report, you say that the neighbor does not like to have a neighbor and homosexual. It is unfortunate, but this is not the government's fact.
All right, we can call up once again that map. What is a fact as well, as we were just saying, and we can see the map once again, is that more and more those laws are being enforced. The countries you see in pink are countries where homosexuality is criminalized. The ones in black where you can even die. And you see that Nigeria on that map is cut in two between the rest of the country and the northern states. Please explain that for us, Joseph AKORO.
Okay. Well, there are 12 states in northern Nigeria that implement Sharia law, and according to the Sharia law, it's death by stoning for any man who is married and then indicted to have or convicted to have had sex with another man. So this is why it is the penalty for homosexuality in northern Nigeria could be up to death sentence.
Is it implemented? Sorry if I'm...
Well, in the past few years, there hadn't been any news of implementation, really, because it hasn't gone to the point of conviction. One thing that is very interesting about Sharia law is that there must be several proof of evidence to show that this crime had actually been committed. So there must be certain witnesses, about 3 or even more. So that makes Sharia law in this regard to be really, really difficult to convict anyone based on the crime. But people who are being accused of this crime suffer violence within the society, suffer shame and even psychological problems as a result of what they go through at the Sharia courts.
All right, Thomas FOUQUET LAPAR, Uganda is not in black on that list on that map that we saw. They did amend a bill which has not yet been signed by the president. A bill that would nonetheless put homosexuals in prison for life. And what are your thoughts on this? Why is there this trend towards criminalization?
But I think it's very important to to state that criminalization in Africa, like also in Asia, is from the colony time, most of them. So it's not something that has been enforced after colonization, with a very few exceptions. And it's the case also for Uganda, with the current homophobic law is from criminalization. And even the one coming now that's just being adopted is a lot influenced from very radical religious groups coming from Western countries, especially USA. So it's an influence that comes, I mean, this homophobic wind is also an influence coming even from the West. Mm-hmm. So it's not something especially African. I don't believe in homophobia that is something African. I don't believe in that. I think there is for sure a big struggle to go through. But the thing also I want to say is that the more you make weaker a part of the population, the more the whole population is weak. And I think that if South Africa could go so good in the whole Africa and is such an example for all the other African countries, it's because
by approving same-sex marriage.
Yeah, and I mean more widely in terms of development, in terms of rights, it's also because they understood that if you want to get peace and development, you need to give rights to everybody. There's no alternative. And I want to say, Mr. Minister, that there's no democracy for a few and not for all. Democracy is for all or is not. And if countries want development and peace, they need to give that to everyone. It's not something to be shared, to be not shared. Sorry.
All right, and we have a tweet here. Freedom of speech is the essence of real democracy. We should either accept differences, no matter how extreme, or forget about it. Issa Tchiroma BAKARY, let me get you just to comment on Nigeria's law, which bans gay movements, gay groups.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that law?
Well, okay, law is the law. In my capacity as a minister of communication, I cannot any judgment with what is taking place in this marvelous and orderly country, which is Nigeria. I refuse to make any comment. Let me tell you what is the debate which is taking place in the front here. We are saying that a bias against culture and civilization. Here, what is taking place today is polygamy. I've never accepted to take this with Western culture. This is a Western tradition. As far as gay homosexuality are concerned, we know it. This way of living in the society from Western civilization, we respect this civilization, but please respect ours. Don't be biased against us. Listen to us. What is our civilization? At the beginning of our conversation, I remind you that at 90, more than 99 are believers. You have a handful of people who are gay and homosexual or lesbian. You evoke democracy. What is the purpose of democracy? Democracy is the recognition of majority over the minority. People who are gay today here in Cameroon, they know that the law forbids reality because nobody is above, nobody is supposed to ignore them. Then why do they obey the law? This is the problem, but I keep repeating when they are free.
So Joseph AKORO, let me get Joseph AKORO's reaction to that.
All right. Well, firstly, I'm going to say that democracy is not only about the majority, but also about equity. That's my first point. The second point is that you argue, like many other Africans, even Nigerians, like myself, about polygamy in the West, but polygamists are not being sent to jail. It's just that it's not recognized. I also like to point out that the law right now in Nigeria is not only about same-sex marriage, and same-sex marriage is something not already legal in Nigeria. Nobody would, ask for same-sex marriage. The Marriage Act is very explicit on one man, one woman, and polygamy can only be indulged or accepted if customary law is applied according to the legal system in Nigeria. And so the problem we're having with the anti-gay law right now is that human rights organizations cannot work because this law criminalizes every organization that want to promote the rights and to protect the rights of people who engage in same-sex relationships. And for us, this is an impediment, or this jeopardizes the freedom to expression.
Joseph AKORO, I'm going to have to interrupt you because we're going to have to go to Washington for a breaking news story. The U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry commenting on Syria.
Some of the recent revisionism as to why the international community will be gathering in Montreux next week. So let me make it clear here today. From the very moment that we announced the goal of holding the Geneva Conference on Syria, we all agreed that the purpose was specifically and solely to implement the 2012 Geneva I communique. That purpose, that sole purpose, could not have been more clear at the time this was announced, and it could not be more clear today. It has been reiterated in international statement after international statement that the parties have signed up to. And venue after venue, in resolution after resolution, including most recently in Paris last weekend, when both the London 11 and the Russian Federation reaffirmed their commitment to that objective, the implementation of Geneva I. So for anyone seeking to rewrite this history or to muddy the waters, let me state one more time what Geneva II is about. It is about establishing a process essential to the formation of a transition governing body with full executive powers established by mutual consent. That process, it is the only way to bring about an end to the civil war that has triggered one of the planet's most severe humanitarian disasters and which has created the seeding grounds for extremism. The Syrian people need to be able to determine the future of their country. Their voice must be heard. And any names put forward for leadership of Syria's transition must, according to the terms of Geneva I, and every one of the reiterations of that being the heart and soul of Geneva II, those names must be agreed to by both the opposition and the regime. That is the very definition of mutual consent. This means that any figure that is deemed unacceptable by either side, whether President Assad or a member of the opposition, cannot be a part of the future. The United Nations, the United States, Russia, and all the countries attending know what this conference is about. After all, that was the basis of the UN invitation sent individually to each country, a restatement of the purpose of implementing Geneva I. And attendance by both sides and the parties can come only with their acceptance of the goals of the conference. We, too, are deeply concerned about the rise of extremism. The world needs no reminder that Syria has become the magnet for jihadists and extremists. It is the strongest magnet for terror of any place today. So it defies logic to imagine that those whose brutality created this magnet, how they could ever lead Syria away from extremism and towards a better future is beyond any kind of logic or common sense. And so on the eve of the Syrian Opposition Coalition General Assembly meeting tomorrow to decide whether to participate in Geneva in the peace conference, the United States, for these reasons, urges a positive vote. We do so knowing that the Geneva Peace Conference is not the end, but rather the beginning, the launch of a process that is the best opportunity for the opposition to achieve the goals of the Syrian people and the revolution, and a political solution to this terrible conflict that has taken many, many, many too many lives. We will continue to push. In the meantime, for vital access for humanitarian assistance. I talked yesterday with Russian Federation Foreign Minister Lavrov in an effort to push still harder for access to some areas where the regime played games with the convoys, taking them around a circuitous route instead of directly in the way that the opposition had arranged for and was willing to protect them in. It is important that there be no games played with this process. We will also continue to fight for ceasefires where we could achieve them, and we will continue to fight for the exchange or release of captive journalists and aid workers and others in order to try to improve the climate for negotiations. Now, obviously, none of this will be easy. Ending a war and stopping a slaughter never is easy. We believe, though, this is the only road that can lead to the place where the civilized world has joined together in an effort to lead the parties to a better outcome. And to the Syrian people, let me reiterate, the United States and the international community will continue to provide help and support, as we did yesterday in Kuwait, where we pledged $380 million of additional assistance in order to try to relieve the pain and suffering of the refugees. We will continue to stand with the people of Syria, writ large, all the people, in an effort to provide them with the dignity and the new Syria which they are fighting for. Thank you. And as I said, I'd be happy to answer questions tomorrow.
How can anyone
Thanks.
negotiate in good faith with the regime under this premise, sir?
All right, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry making a plea to the Syrian opposition to vote yes to taking part in that Syria peace conference that opens next week in Switzerland. I want to thank our guests for joining us in the France 24 debate. More news to come in just 1 minute with Melissa Bell right here on France 24.